You wouldn't survive one night in a medieval castle. You think you know castles. You've seen the movies, visited the ruins, admired the tapestries in museums. But here's the brutal truth. If you were transported back to spend a single night in a functioning medieval castle, you'd be begging to leave before sunrise, assuming you survived it all. Let me take you inside the stone walls, where history really happened, where every shadow held a threat and every comfort came with a price written in blood. The moment you step inside, it's 1347, and you've just passed through the gatehouse of a mid-sized English castle. The portcullis crashes down behind you with a sound like a judge's gavel sealing your fate. The first thing that hits you isn't the sight, it's the smell. Imagine the concentrated essence of unwashed bodies, animal dung, rotting food scraps, wood smoke, and human waste all fermenting together in an enclosed space. Medieval people didn't bathe regularly, not because they were ignorant, but because heating water was expensive and time-consuming. The lord of the castle might bathe a few times a year. The servants, almost never. You'd be breathing in the accumulated funk of hundreds of people living in close quarters with livestock, hunting dogs, and falcons. But here's where it gets interesting. Your modern immune system, pampered by antibiotics and vaccines, would immediately start panicking. The air itself is a biological weapon your body has no defense against. When darkness falls. As the sun sets, you discover what true darkness really means. No streetlights, no flashlights, not even reliable candles. Those were expensive, made from animal fat or beeswax and reserved for the wealthy. Most people made do with rushlights, reeds soaked in animal grease that produced a dim, flickering glow and filled the room with greasy smoke. In this darkness, the castle transforms. Those romantic stone corridors become claustrophobic death traps. The spiral staircases, deliberately designed to give defending swordsmen the advantage, would become nearly impossible to navigate. Miss a step and you're tumbling down stone edges that have already claimed countless lives. But here's the hook that would terrify any modern person. You wouldn't be sleeping in a private bedroom. Privacy, as we understand it, simply didn't exist. The horror of medieval sleeping arrangements. If you were a servant or soldier, which statistically you would be, you'd be sleeping on the floor of the great hall with dozens of others. No mattress. Perhaps a thin layer of rushes between you and the stone floor, reeds that haven't been changed in weeks and are now home to fleas, lice, and rats. Yes, rats. Everywhere. These weren't cute, domesticated rats. Medieval rats were bold, hungry, and carried diseases that would kill a third of Europe in the coming months, though no one knew it yet. They'd crawl over you while you slept, and there was absolutely nothing you could do about it. Even if you were lucky enough to be a guest of honor, your private chamber would have servants sleeping on the floor, and possibly on a trundle bed pulled from under your own. The concept of sleeping alone was considered bizarre, even dangerous. Who would wake you if assassins came? Who would tend the fire? And speaking of fire, this brings us to the most immediate threat to your survival. The ever-present threat of fire. Every castle room had a fireplace. It had to. Winter temperatures could kill, and stone walls offered zero insulation. But here's what the movies never show you. Medieval fireplaces were catastrophically inefficient. Most of the heat went straight up the chimney while smoke filled the room. Your eyes would water constantly. Your lungs would burn. Respiratory infections were rampant. But the smoke was the least of your worries. Castle fires were terrifyingly common. One spark from the hearth landing on the rush-strewn floor. One tapestry hanging too close to the flames. One sleeper kicking over a rushlight. And the entire wooden infrastructure inside these stone shells would become an inferno. The stone walls that look so protective, they'd trap you inside, turning the castle into an oven. The spiral staircases would clog with panicking people. The narrow windows, designed for defense, became death traps. Records show castle fires could kill dozens in minutes. And here's the truly chilling part. There was no fire department coming, no sprinkler system. No fire extinguisher, just buckets of water, panic, and prayer. The garderobe. Nature's call becomes nature's nightmare. Eventually, nature would call, and you'd face one of the medieval world's most disgusting realities: the garderobe. This bathroom was literally a stone seat with a hole that dropped waist down a shaft, sometimes straight into the moat, sometimes into a cesspit below. Sitting on that frigid stone in the middle of the night, with the wind howling up through the shaft and rats potentially climbing up the same shaft toward you, you'd understand why medieval people had such short life expectancies. The smell alone could induce vomiting. In winter, the cold could cause hypothermia. And if you lost your balance, people actually died falling through garderobe shafts. But the psychological horror was worse. These shafts were legitimate security vulnerabilities. There are recorded instances of attackers climbing up garderobe shafts to infiltrate castles. Imagine sitting there, vulnerable and exposed, knowing someone could emerge from below at any moment. The sounds of medieval night. As you lie awake, and you would be awake, trust me, you'd hear sounds that would make modern horror films seem quaint. The screams of someone dying from infection in another part of the castle. Antibiotics didn't exist. The howls of dogs fighting over scraps. The scurrying of countless rodents in the walls, coughing, moaning. The sounds of people relieving themselves in chamber pots just feet away. And then there were the real dangers. The guards changing watch, their footsteps and muffled conversations. Were they loyal, or were they conspirators planning to murder the lord and everyone in the castle? Castle coups were common enough that this wasn't paranoia, it was reasonable concern. The morning revelation. If you somehow survived until dawn, you'd face one final horror: the morning meal. Breakfast wasn't universal. Many people simply didn't eat in the morning. When food was served, it might be bread so hard you'd risk breaking your teeth, ale, because water could kill you, and perhaps some pottage that had been sitting out overnight. The bread itself might contain ergot fungus, which causes convulsions, hallucinations, and death. The meat might be preserved with so much salt it's barely edible, or worse, going rotten and disguised with spices. Food poisoning was just part of life. The uncomfortable truth. Here's what makes all of this truly fascinating. Medieval people didn't think they were suffering. This was normal life. They were tough in ways we can barely comprehend. Their bodies and minds adapted to conditions that would break modern humans in hours. When we romanticize medieval castles, we're looking at empty stone husks, cleaned and preserved. We're not smelling them, not living in them, not surviving in them. The reality was cold, dark, dangerous, filthy, and utterly unforgiving. So the next time you see a castle and think how romantic, remember, you wouldn't last one night, and neither would I. Our soft, sanitized modern bodies would rebel against every single element of medieval castle life, from the air we breathed to the darkness we'd sleep in, if sleep came at all. That's not a weakness. That's progress. And it's something to be genuinely grateful for every single night when you climb into your clean bed, in your private room, with modern plumbing just steps away, and no rats crawling over your face. The medieval world wasn't a fairy tale, it was a survival test most of us would fail.